I love this quote from Ed Sakota. If you can't measure it, you probably can't manage it. Things you measure tend to improve. Let me read that one more time. It's so damn beautiful and simple. If you can't measure it, you probably can't manage it. Things you measure tend to improve. Let me give a non-trading example, something fun for me. I've mentioned it on this podcast before, but I've become an avid box jumper. I'm sure you've all seen this in the gyms. Jump up onto the box. Some people go low, some people go high, some people go crazy high. And if you don't know what you're doing, you can damage yourself pretty damn good, pretty fast. And there are some fantastically scary but funny videos on Instagram of people failing in gyms on box jumps. I mean, some crazy fails. Now, I've been doing it for 2 years. I think over 2 years, maybe. And no fails. Or if I do fail, I just kind of hit my knee on the front of the box and then I don't get on the box. I mean, I don't make the jump. But I'm not crashing. I'm not burning. I'm not falling on my head or anything like that. My maximum jump is 38 inches, around 98 centimeters. My jumps that I did yesterday, I did 100 reps. I would break it down into like 10 pieces of 10, 10 jumps of 10. And I did that at 33 inches, about 83 centimeters. But those are numbers, right? 100 reps at 33 inches. Last week, I think I did 120 reps. The only reason this week I did less, my ankle was screwed up from some kind of thing at the track, whatever. But it's numbers. It's concrete. Now you can say to me, Mike, can you prove that you did those numbers? Well, I did not film all 100, that's for sure. I could have because I was jumping with a partner, but she wasn't filming either. I guess we could pull the security cam footage from the gym, which would show that I did do the 100. My point being, again, we're talking about numbers. We're talking about proof. We're talking about something that happened. We can analyze it. We can analyze my jumping over the last year. I keep pretty decent stats. I don't keep stats good enough to make too much of an analysis out of my jumping, except that I improved because a year and a half ago, maybe I could do one jump at 33 inches. And yesterday I did 100. So there's an endurance there. There is an improvement back to the Ed Sakota quote. If you can't measure it, you probably can't manage it. Things you measure tend to improve. I think deep down, no one's really arguing the point about counting, measuring, improving. We all know that's how the world works, right? Elon Musk is a rich MF because he can count better than a lot of people. And he's got a great probabilistic mind and it's worked out for him. But he's a numbers guy and there's no bullshit. Now, it won't surprise you that in this trend following world, I find myself in debates, conversations, because I like to teach. I like to share what I know. So let me take you back in time. The first time that I saw the performance, the literal month-by-month performance of trend following traders, professional traders who have their track records on file with the United States government at the Commodity Futures Trading Commission in the form of a document called a disclosure document. All very technical stuff, not uncommon. But the first time that I saw this kind of information was in 1994. And I saw it in a book, not unlike a phone book, felt like that, kind of a paperback, big, thick thing called a Stark Report. And you could open that Stark Report and you could look at the month-by-month performance data for all the trend following traders, from Bill Dunn to John Henry to Bill Dreiss to Larry Height to the Turtles and you could see what they were doing. This was the data that they were reporting, audited data by accounting firms on file with the United States government. Now, I'm sure somewhere along the line, somebody cooked the books, they faked the data, etc. But generally speaking, I have not found that to be the case in the trend following world. The trend following world is not filled with a lot of Bernie Madoffs. So why is that? Well, if you're a trend following trader, people know what to expect. For example, institutional investors, they know if certain markets are trending. And if they have an investment with trend following traders, they're going to expect to see a certain performance from those big moves. For example, like I've said on this podcast, like I said last week, the week before, cocoa in 2024. A huge move, something that reflects in the performance data. Or I can take you back to 1998, the summer, long-term capital management blowing up. You could see in the performance data that trend following traders won big at the exact same time long-term capital management lost billions. Why is this? The futures markets are a zero-sum game. So much of the losses that came from long-term capital management that required the so-called bailout, because long-term capital management, LTCM, if they did not get the bailout, supposedly the world was going to go to hell in a handbasket in August of 1998. Now, that's a different issue than what I'm really talking about, but it is a side note tangent. And you can go read the book about long-term capital management. And it's also covered in my book, Trend Following, the 5th edition. But ultimately, you can see that the trend following traders were the winners. And you could see that performance data in something like the Stark Report. And there's plenty of other places that report this data. Many of the trend following traders will post the data on their websites. Now, if you're like me and you're kind of new at that time, a long time ago, this is a hell of a lesson. I'm like, wow, look at all this data. This is a proof. This is a proof of something, a proof of concept. These different traders, often unaffiliated, generating performance numbers that are similar. Just fascinating. Now, that's the setup to today to get into my X/Twitter debates. The setup meaning trend following has proof. You can look it up. There's no bullshit. There's no stories. There's no lore. There's no fantasy. There's no reading the charts. Just look at the damn performance data. There it is. Price-based trend following. One of the things I did in my first book, first edition, Trend Following 2004, was establish that there are two forms of technical analysis. One is predictive. This would be all of the technical analysis charting books, the candlestick predictions, etc., etc. The other form of technical analysis is reactive. That's trend following, meaning the only indicator is price. And you're following the price movement. There is no prediction of the price movement. I repeat, there is no prediction of the price movement with trend following. I don't know how many of you out there can't understand that. I know, of course, many of you do, but let me tell you, it is a damn interesting thing to me that people don't get this. Or they get it and they just don't want to admit they've been bamboozled by the, quote, predictive technical analysis. So across this backdrop, a backdrop that I've been arguing about and arguing over for 20 plus years, I stated on my X account, TA prediction cultists don't want to know what trend following is. I followed up with, I named the trend following traders over the decades, a deep group. They're in my books and on my podcast. They do something similar. Price, no prediction. and I've been doing it forever. It's a strategy that can be coded and tested. Where is the typical prediction TA by comparison? Question mark. So not surprisingly to me, that kind of a question to criticize prediction technical analysis, it brings people out of the woodwork. They want to debate it. They want to clarify it. They want to say something that they don't know a damn thing about. I get all types. But I enjoy the process because it's a teaching moment to share. And let me share some of the feedback that came in from my post that I just read you. One guy says, how do you categorize traders who discretionarily buy congestion breakouts with prior momentum, high tight flag, and then trail at least part of their position with a moving average, TA, TF, or a hybrid? Or is this just all semantics? I simply said to him, not trend following. Trend following is price action, not price prediction. Follow the price, not predict the price. But how the hell do we get to a place where people are so unfamiliar with the difference? Well, because there's a hell of a lot of technical analysis books that read like voodoo, that read like some type of freaking oracle with a crystal ball. Because people want to believe if they have a chart and some magical pattern has been interpreted, they can make a prediction. Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay, where's the proof? That was the whole setup to this conversation. The trend following proof, remember? The Stark report, the CFTC, the disclosure documents. So when this guy starts talking about discretionarily buying congestion breakouts with prior momentum, high tight flag, whatever the hell all that means, why is he not curious where the professional traders are? Why is he not curious that the investing strategy he just described to me is not available to institutional investors? Why are institutional investors not beating down his door to invest in whatever the hell he just described? And why is the strategy that he just described not in the performance tracking services that I've brought up so far? Like, these are the kind of questions I would have if I was just a skeptic. I mean, if somebody wanted to be a skeptic about trend following, they'd be like, okay, Mike, you've got these interesting books. Where's the proof? Well, then I'd throw freaking 1,000 disclosure documents on the floor from an assortment of traders over the last, 50, 60, 70 years. I mean, somebody could still doubt that, but at least it's something. So for the technical analysis that I call reactive, which is trend following, here's the proof, motherfucker. And then I say for the predictive technical analysis, don't give me just one trader that you've found. Where's the comparable, wide, and deep proof? That's what I want to see. I've wanted to see it for over 20 years. I'm waiting. Another guy wrote and he said, I've synergized both technical analysis and trend following for years. I'm not sure what prediction cultists are all about, but both styles can and do complement each other. Remember what Ed Secoda said? If you can't measure it, you probably can't manage it. Things you measure tend to improve. What the hell does that mean? So I replied to this guy. I said, the reason I was able to write trusted books about trend following was because I had trend following performance data over untold numbers of traders over 5+ decades. Where are the comparable performance numbers for TA and or TA/TF? Question mark. My associate here on X replied, if a trend follower uses momentum indicators, moving average, etc., it incorporates TA. You don't need to be privy to individual trader performance metrics to prove it works. There are plenty of data points one can aggregate to see that it can and does. Though you can gather some available data on the most successful traders of all time, there's plenty of evidence indicating they incorporate TA from Jesse Livermore to Paul Tudor Jones and many in between. Well, he didn't give me the evidence, did he? Remember the stacks of disclosure documents, the performance reporting, the shit that enabled me to write the trend following books, the proof? That's what I was asking him for. And I got one of those kind of political dodges. So I asked him again. So there is no evidence. Trend following is not about predicting monumental difference. He replied, evidence as in public advisors' performance that uses TA exclusively? No. The problem with quantifying TA performance is that it's a discretionary approach, but that doesn't mean traders don't use it effectively. Quite the contrary. I've used with success several charting services to trade along with over the years. As I mentioned, some trend followers will use some form of TA to complement. All speculation is presupposed on some form of prediction. I asked him, can you code what you're describing? Or is it just art? He took a rain check. He's going to come back at that question. And that is where the rubber meets the road. Back to Ed Sekoda's postulate at the beginning. If you can't measure it, you probably can't manage it. Things you measure tend to improve. Count, count, count. Tell me what institutional investors, tell me what investors want to invest in a strategy that you can't quantify. If you can't quantify it, how can you manage the risk? How can you keep track of anything? Is predictive TA, predictive technical analysis, ultimately something akin to sitting in front of 20 monitors and you alone are the master interpreter, the master artist, and you see the wiggle and then you predict what's going to happen next? Where in the hell is the proof? That's my simple point. But look, I should know by now. People, they fall into a certain cognitive dissonance. I back them into a corner with questions. I point out the honest comparison to trend following. I ask for an apples to apples comparison. I don't get it. I'm told there's a discretionary element, a mysterious element. Let me give a little bit of a trend following criticism. Back in the day, in some of these disclosure documents, I would often see trend following traders, including some of the turtles, who would say that 95% of their trading was systematic, but 5% was discretion. Now, the performance track records did not back that up. But we have a culture, or we had a culture, I don't think it exists in the same way today, a culture where the institutional investors did not want to believe that the automated machines could make good decisions. So the institutional investors influenced trend following traders to say in their disclosure documents, there was a discretionary component. I mean, no harm, no foul. Even if it's not true, it's true because you could always say, well, I overrode the system. But the evidence never existed for that. They've been systematic forever. That is the trend following traders. And they're systematic because you can take price-based rules over a wide group of markets and you can automate that. You can code that. Or you could just write out a paper spreadsheet and say, here are my buy signals, here are my sell signals, here are my ATR stops. And you could write it out on paper, which is no doubt what people like the legendary Richard Donchian did when he first started. Because there were no computers. All you had were freaking numbers. You didn't have any squiggly lines on the screen because there wasn't any fucking screen. You just had numbers. And what could you do with those numbers? Could you trade those numbers? Could you trade the price? Ladies and gentlemen, it has not changed. We're decades into this. And it hasn't changed, not happening. I think the moral of this particular story today, for me, are the numbers of people in this brave new world of the internet that have no clue. Because you have a situation where if you want to get into investing, if you want to get into trading, there's an army of books you can buy. And how do you know, for example, as you start, how do you know which book is based on evidence and which book is just based on a nice story? How do you know? You don't know unless you do the work. Or you happen to find somebody like me who is driven to find proof. If you find that person who's driven to find proof, that's a workaround. That's a hack. You can get there faster because they've done the work for you. But if you don't, you pick up the technical analysis prediction book, you open an account, and you start trading XYZ prediction indicator that supposedly will tell you if this pattern happens, or if this movement happens, or if whatever happens, or if the volume does this, then the market will do that. That is so different than trend following. It's not even in the same headspace. It really isn't. Even though I defined technical analysis to be predictive or reactive, I don't think these two approaches are in the same headspace. Trend following is something you could do an autopsy on. You can rip it apart. You can gut it and put it on the table and study it and learn from it. Open it up. Touch it. Predictive technical analysis is about trust. Trust what the book says. Trust what the guy on social media says. And there are millions of people that have decided that that's a good business, to just talk about something that's not real. But guess what? There's a lot of stuff in our society that's not real. A whole lot of stuff in our society that's not real. New York City has 31 legally recognized genders. Ladies and gentlemen, that is insanity. Is there any evidence for that? No, and you know that. The people that wrote the stuff know that. But that's the world we live in. We live in an unreality. If you live in an unreality, how do you manage? How do you measure, as Ed Secoda said? If you live in an unreality, how do you measure? Well, one of the great things about the markets is that so far, at this moment of human evolution, the market price is still a real thing. It's the truth. You can't fake it. Every minute, every hour, every day, every week, there is a market price. And as long as you have the damn market price, you can play the game. And if you got the market price, you can find proof. Now, if I take it back to New York City and its 31 genders, is there really anybody listening to this podcast, listening to me, that believes there are 31 genders? Because if you do believe that, I have to ask why. You have no evidence. You literally have no evidence, but you believe it. That's the modern world. But guess what? That's not what you want. You want evidence that you can believe in. You want evidence that's real that you can make decisions on. You don't want to be one of these chuckleheads fucking around, wasting time, wasting their life in silly debates and silly conversations. Now, you might also say to me, Mike, why are you doing such? Oh, come on. I'll dip my toe in the water occasionally and see what lunacy that people will parrot back to me, but I don't stay immersed in it. I'm too busy to do that. But you got to reach out sometimes. You got to find out what the insanity is out there. You got to lick your finger and hold it up to the wind and see what the nutbags are saying. If you don't have as good of stories. I mean, you got to get out there in the game. You got to see what crazy people are doing. You can't let the crazy people affect you. You can't let the crazy people affect your choices, your decision-making, your trading, your investing. But you can observe them. And you can say to yourself, damn, I'm lucky that I'm not doing that dumb shit over there that idiot's doing. It's all about the evidence. It's all about the proof. All I ask is whatever the issue, prove it. Now, there's always going to be an outlier out there. Somebody that perhaps has found a way to have some chart pattern that makes them money. I don't deny that. My point, which very few people that posted on X seemed to understand, I'm sure the lurkers understood quite clearly what I was saying. Where is the wide and deep proof? If trend following is to be considered a form of technical analysis, and I guess it has to be, even though I think it's silly, then give me the comparable predictive technical analysis proof. You know what? I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to help you out. I shouldn't do this. I should charge you for this. Because here I am challenging you to go find the predictive technical analysis proof. I'm going to help you. I'm going to give you a big hint. It doesn't exist. See you again next week. Have a good one.
I see a time when those awake will understand how to make money in up, down, and surprise markets. Whether new trader or experienced, college student or financial advisor, protecting against a crash or just trying to make a lot of money, trend following offers everyone an answer in uncertain times. To get started immediately, send me an email, michael@covel.com. I will send you the right trend following steps to take along with my free video. But if you want to buy and hold, trust the government and trust Wall Street, this is absolutely not for you.